Welcome to the next episode of the Disruption Lab. So one of the things that I wanted to do, we've had a lot of conversations about ecosystem building. We've had a lot of conversations about how things have transpired or are transpiring here in Kansas City. I kind of want to go back to my first part of this journey was I was an executive at Sprint. It was kind of in that 2010 window when Google Fiber had just been announced and things had started up over. I don't know if any of you remember the Startup Village, Kansas City Startup Village. And I had the opportunity to meet our next guest during that window of time and get to know him over the years and kind of this breadth of experience. And even recently have had the opportunity to learn about other things that he's had his hand in and been working on. And to me, it's just a fascinating story and a fascinating opportunity about someone who has really kind of parlayed a wealth of knowledge into helping other people in different ways, but also has this amazing technology background, this entrepreneurship background, this investor background. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to get Dan Carroll up here and have a conversation about a lot of these different types of things. So Dan, thanks for joining us. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor. I just am so impressed with what you've been able to build here and the community that you've put around this space. So thrilled to be here.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. So I do kind of want to go back to, prior to me knowing you, there's three roles I think that, we want to kind of dive into here a little bit. But first is I want to talk a little bit about your experience as a founder and your experience kind of in the, this marketing technology space. This is kind of a space where you were in when I first met you.
Yep.
So you were founder and co-founder?
Yeah, so founder and CEO of Ad Predictive for a long time. That I founded that company in 2002. It's running here in Kansas City today. We came here in 2010 from Silicon Valley. Like a lot of people in Kansas City, I came here for family. So we had an 18-month-old and we were pregnant with twins living in Mountain View, and it was time to get close to home. And so we came in, and we obviously had been running it for quite some time at that point, and still run it today. So that's marketing software company. So our clients, the Ad Council or Warner Brothers Discovery, and actually no clients here in Kansas City, but all in New York and California mostly. It was a great chance to get back here, and then of course when we landed here, 2010, there's a very different scene in the startup scene here. Frankly, there wasn't much of a startup scene here at that time, and so like I had seen in Silicon Valley, we started, kind of landed in this spot that eventually became the Startup Village. But we just started inviting startups to kind of office with us and hang out and that kind of stuff. And there was just such a wonderful environment there for a couple of years in the early years. And obviously Adam Arredondo and Matthew Marcus did a wonderful job pulling that scene really together. But we being my sister and I, we pulled together some funds and we started to invest a little bit through a facility called the Rocket Fuel Partners. Mm-hmm. And what we noticed was that there just weren't very many people taking risks around here. I mean, little risks,
right?
But just sort of almost no big risks. And we at that time were very interested in seeing if we could help some people who were ready to take really big risks. And kind of swing for the fences type of technology ventures. And so we did. So we spent a number of years investing in and trying to help some of these early stage, high risk companies get going. It was a wonderful time.
So you're Kansas City native, right?
I'm actually from Wichita, so Kansas City is the big town.
Oh yeah, I came up to the big city from Wichita. Yeah, I'm a Dodge City kid, so yeah, I can definitely speak to that phenomenon of going to the big city of Kansas City. So you came to Kansas City, you're Shawnee Mission?
Yeah, so I was in Wichita. I went to Wichita Southeast. Now I'm living on the Kansas side in Prairie Village.
Okay. What took you out to Silicon Valley?
Yeah, so we were running the company. It was we really felt like as it was starting to grow, we needed to be in the epicenter of where technology was happening.
So founded here?
Founded actually in Minnesota, in Minneapolis,
okay.
Where I went to school. And I was, if we want to go back a little bit to that story, I was a writer. I was an English major and a writer for a magazine.
Many technology founders started that way, I'm sure.
Actually, I know a lot of technology founders and CEOs who were, drama majors or English. It's, what else do you do with an English major?
I think I saw a stat that 50% of the tech founders in Silicon Valley all are liberal arts.
Yeah, liberal arts graduates. Yeah. I meet people all the time. Yeah, for sure. Philosophy, a lot of philosophy folks. But yeah, so I was writing, and this magazine happened to have a thing called Cafe Utney. So it was the Utney Reader magazine. It had a thing called Cafe Utney, which was online communities. This is pre-social network, so I'm dating myself a little bit here. But it was a blast. So there were these wonderful long-form conversations, really meaningful stuff online that we were facilitating. And then I immediately found the internet basically, and kind of never looked back. But we won a Webby, we powered things like Salon.com, and it was just this wonderful opportunity to get to know a world that I just was completely unfamiliar with. And it was sort of through that experience, after having started Ad Predictive, that we kind of felt like we kind of needed to be closer to where technology was happening. And tech hubs were so much more focused at that time.
Well, there weren't really tech. I mean,
there was one really.
2 or 3 in Boston.
Here, maybe a little bit Boston, a little bit New York, but Silicon Valley was it.
I mean, it was pre-Austin. Really,
Yeah,
that
for
was
sure.
pre-South. South by was just a music festival.
It was just a music festival. Yeah, I went to the first one where it was tech. It's been an interesting sort of growth in these regions where who would have thought Kansas City would have technology and so forth.
So as someone who's got Midwestern roots, went to school in Minnesota, started a company, and then took it out to Silicon Valley, what was that experience like? Like, what was your read on Silicon Valley? Was it is it one of those grass is always greener, this is going to be great, then you got there and it was different, or?
No, there's some wonderful stuff in Silicon Valley. The ability, I was taking courses at Stanford and spending my days in the labs of big tech companies, going to conferences and so forth. There's always something to learn there. There's curiosity kind of rules. There's really, really smart people, and it's very aggressive, of course. But the thing that you find is that it also is a hard place to focus in on an idea for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of trend chasing, and so some of the advantages that we've found here are that you can have a company that doesn't actually take too much to fund. Of course, software companies are increasingly affordable to get rolling, and teams can focus for a long period of time on a really hard problem, which is a really big advantage here. That's very challenging to do in Silicon Valley.
That's interesting. You don't hear people talk about those types of advantages. A lot of the conversations go to access to resources, access to capital, things like networks. Mm-hmm. But you don't hear a lot of people talk about the ability to focus and so on. But it's true. I mean, it's a huge thing.
It's true.
So you come back to Kansas City. You're running at. So you've been, and you're now the chairman.
Yeah, so today I'm chair of the board, and I do strategy work there, about 15 hours a week.
What have been the most transformative changes that you've seen in that industry from 2002 to 2025?
We had this. A lot. We had an early theory that technology was going to empower people to increasingly take over more and more of the primary roles for the work that they were doing. So in a sense, marketers at the businesses were going to be empowered to do more and more of the work themselves. Right? They had the most reason to do it. They care the most about the businesses that they run. And that this was going to start at big enterprises and then ultimately go down to small businesses. And that is what's happening, and it certainly has happened to a large degree. We just didn't think it was going to take this long.
Yeah, it just happened at a slower rate, right?
It's been a very long run, but one thing that we've found in particular with AI, it's just sped it up so fast. So the move is increasingly moving that way. We have a new product that we call Addy. It automates audio advertising. So it's an AI that automates audio advertising. You can be a small business if you want to do a little audio ad on a podcast or a radio station, Spotify or something. It'll just make it automatically. So, it was a year ago, it would be $2,500 and studio time and creative and a writer and all of that kind of stuff. And effectively, that cost is zero now.
Yeah.
But what that means is that more and more people are able to actually do that, to control it. So the market is going to grow significantly. And the ability for the small business owner to make something that really reflects them and to get their word out, it's really been fun to watch.
It's one of those things as you get older, you start to kind of reflect back on like the trends and the things we said about what was going to happen previously. And it's been, everything is, we talked about digital transformation for so long, and it seemed like it was stuck in a rut until the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then everybody had to do it,
Yep.
right? Everybody had to do
Yep.
it. You have remote work and you have all these things that happen. And I think AI is that same opportunity, right? It's just been this catalyst for a lot of pent up transformational industry transformations that we've been talking about for a long time.
Yep.
How do you see AI and the opportunities with artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I have two different companies that I'm working on AI with, and I see it a lot like the early days of the internet itself. That's in 2001, I can remember with the crash of the .com, there were all of these executives at Fortune 500 companies who were saying, oh, well, the internet's over. That was fun. That didn't work. We'll try something else. And AI, it's like you hear all these people, there's like peak excitement right now, and certainly that'll drop and then people will say, oh, okay, well, we've reached the top of this thing. But what happens is that's the moment at which the real work starts getting done.
Yeah.
Right, all of the real companies that we know, the Googles and so forth, they all came out of that trough of like, okay, what are we going to do with this internet sort of thing? And so I'm extremely interested in what comes next in AI. I think we've just seen the tip of the iceberg, and so the real work that's going to change people's lives, not the log into ChatGPT and ask it some stuff kind of stuff, but the experience. A better world, more automated, and hopefully more personalized for you, I think is around the corner, and I'm really excited about that.
Saw somebody talking about 2025, and you could say that this will probably be 26 or 27, given the way these things typically happen, but 2025 is going to be the year of the AI agent.
Yeah, there's no question. I think that's already, that's certainly happening. We've effectively what I described for Addy, that's an AI agent for creating an audio advertisement.
Yeah.
And we made that, right here in Kansas City. And there's, I forget the name of the site, but there's a site that's tracking these. I think there are 400 or 500 now agents that are sort of out there already, and we're just getting rolling. And that's great. This is kind of the fine tuning. This is putting it to work in ways that are specific to specific problems. We've kind of experienced the general piece of this. There are real world problems that are a lot of people are going after right now with it.
Do you feel like it's, we tend to move our thinking towards displacement of jobs and displacement of, people's way of living and lifestyles versus talking about the democratization that this creates? There was an announcement this week I think on Monday, big day around, right? But they were talking about this $500 billion investment in AI. And I think the overwhelming sentiment from the community, the tech community that I'm a part of or that I listen to is the big dogs are coming in, they're going to spend all this money because they want to control all this thing. But it's an infrastructure play. Do you think that becomes this democratization step of enabling entrepreneurs and innovators and disruptors to be able to do more?
It's a great question. This is a really important moment in technology. And I think that it's frankly up in the air. The company that my co-founder and I, Aaron Slope, it's called the And Company. That company is focused on bringing people to the center of the internet experience. And we've been working on it for some time, but we trademarked the ampersand symbol so that individuals can claim that and own and control their identity first, and what AIs think of them, that people have control. So distributed to your device, you literally own the tag, and you own all of the data around it, so you control what what AI is able to do. I think those types of technologies are really critical in this moment, because you can think about how much the current media environment is controlled by a small number of players. Well, tomorrow, AI, or tomorrow maybe a couple of years, but tomorrow AI is going to be baked into everything. We don't really talk about the internet so much anymore because it's just everywhere. It's just assumed. So it just is what it is. That's AI too. A couple of years from now, the interactions that we'll have walking into a building, getting a normal latte, whatever, all of that will have some kind of AI-based interaction, as well as, of course, everything we read and see and how we communicate and all the rest of it. But there's this moment of time where things are in serious flux, where we have the possibility of bending it towards people and people's rights and freedoms. And so I'm very concerned about that, but I'm an optimist generally, so I'm very optimistic about what we'll be able to do. Web 2 was kind of a disaster, as most people sort of think. I'm hopeful that Web 3 brings us good stuff.
I've noticed people aren't talking about Web 3 really anymore. It's just it's migrated over to this AI conversation.
It's AI. It was crypto for a second. Now it's AI for a second. I think all of those things get baked into the infrastructure. The $500 billion play and those kinds of things. Those are empowering technologies. I think we will have, and startups will have access to all of those technologies. That's very exciting. It means that what AI does is it enables people who aren't hyper skilled to do things that are really powerful.
So it requires skill.
It's an amazing thing. And so you started this with a question about job displacement and things like that. It's very controversial right now. My own personal take is that we haven't seen an advance in technology that actually caused. Certainly, there's going to be a lot of chaos and it's important how we handle that chaos. A lot of people changing jobs and retraining and things like that. But my personal take is that we're very likely to see a significant economic boom, and that the number of jobs that are possible for people to do, empowered by the technology, are going to increase significantly, and that the value that's capable of being created by that is very high. So that all seems very, very positive. That doesn't mean that people aren't going to lose jobs and need retraining, and it's important how we handle that.
I'm a big history buff, and the reason why is history is the best indicator of the future, the best predictor of the future. And when you look at all of the trends, Industry 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, as we move into Industry 4.0 and some of these other transformations, it's job transitions, it's not job displacement. I mean, we have created more jobs every time one of these things has happened, and every single time one of these changes has happened, they've been talking about people will be out of work.
When the ATM came out, the automated teller machine, right? It's like, okay, all teller jobs are done. That's the end of bank tellering as an occupation. There are 3 times as many bank tellers today as there were when the ATM was invented. They just do different things. In fact, they do more advanced things. They get paid more. They have more interaction with customers about higher order, higher value things. I think that's a pretty consistent thing that we've seen over time.
So, Dan, I want to switch gears a little bit. As an entrepreneur, as an investor, what, in your opinion, do you see that separates the good from the great?
For me, it's all about entrepreneurs, and every time. I pretty much have only ever invested in entrepreneurs.
So as they say, jockeys and horses, you're talking about the jockey.
That's right. So there have been plenty of people with pretty terrible pitches. The business itself it doesn't look that good, but I'm a big believer in people, and Plus, if you're investing at that stage super early, we generally say we're the fools of the friends, family, and fools round. Super early investing. You're going to spend a lot of time with these people,
Yep.
so you really want to know who you're dealing with.
So when you look at those founders and you think about, investing in the entrepreneur, are you looking at the ones who are tackling the biggest problems and have a vision for how to tackle the biggest problems? Are you looking at ones that have the most grit, resilient? Like, what attributes, when you say it's the entrepreneur that separates,
Yep.
what are the attributes and what are the things that you're looking for?
Yeah. So to be really clear, we did a bunch of investing in the early days because we felt like in 2010,
Yep.
2000 to 2015, let's say.
Yep.
A lot of startups, and the focus was on entrepreneurs. We wanted to do sort of one at a time and win every time. Put a lot of energy into each one of them, and it was all focused on anybody that we could find around the region who was trying to hit one out of the park. Kansas City companies only, and trying for a home run. That was the kind of combination. It's so energy intensive. It's so much work. So what I really am focused on now is essentially investing deeply in the efforts that I'm in particular with this co-founder Aaron Slope, phenomenal. But it's he's a good example. He was running a company called Game Day that we were invested in. Just doing great work. Just able to take risks, able to handle very challenging situations, inventing new ways of solving hard problems. And we were able to have a conversation over some years that just said, what's the biggest problem we could tackle? Literally, what's the biggest thing we could think of? What's an outlandish, ridiculous thing to go and try to solve for? And so that's the And Company, and we'll see how that goes.
Now, it's a good segue because you are one of those individuals that I know that is not only willing to, but seeks out those big problems. What are the biggest problems that can be solved? And so you've been doing a lot of work, from my perspective, kind of quietly behind the scenes in philanthropy and in some of the nonprofit work that you've been involved with. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I typically don't do things like this, right? I typically don't do interviews. The philanthropy side has been, poverty, homelessness, affordable housing has been a passion for a long time. So I got involved actually in a wonderful nonprofit in town called Community Link. Actually when I was in college, which is some time ago. I eventually, when I moved here, started to work with them more seriously, eventually joining the board and becoming board chair. And we ran through this process with the board where we looked at the mission in the eye, and we said, okay, the mission is to end homelessness in Kansas City for this generation and the next. Are we doing anything that actually would do that? Or are those just words? Or are we actually doing stuff that's gonna help that? And tough process to go through with the board, and leadership at that time. But what we found was if we weren't working on prevention and we weren't working on housing, then we weren't going to cover it. This is never going to stop. And so anyways, out of that initiative, we started this thing called Community Link Housing, which very recently has become the way home as of now. We haven't actually publicly announced it, so I guess there it is. Where the whole, so you can go to thewayhome.org. The entire spirit of that effort is to propel the movement for affordable housing in Kansas City. So the positioning is to be backseat, right? Is to be supportive infrastructure for anybody who's doing great work. What we found when we started to go out there a couple of years ago is that there are just an amazing amount of projects that are already happening in some form, or people they've got 90% of it done, right? They're on the 10-yard line and there's just some barrier that's stopping them. And it's everything from the lot doesn't have clean title or environmental remediation, or it's a little bit of funding, or things like that. They don't know the right contract, or stuff like that. So a great group of people have gotten together, and we are helping create a little bit of infrastructure so that people can understand the projects that are out there. It's a little bit easier for funders, banks and others to understand what those projects are, where they are, and for the developers to get their needs met, and for the demand side, right, the people coming out of transitional housing programs, people who are now they've gone through sort of housing readiness, financial counseling and other things. That there's some coordination around that, and so we can provide a little bit more of an easier way to make sure that people are finding homes.
Have you looked at? Well, I guess I got a couple of questions. Let me start with this one. Why is this problem so hard to solve?
Yeah, it was hard even before inflation went crazy and prices went nuts. There's a lot of answers to that. Some of the big ones are that most of the profits are in building stick-built big McMansions in the suburbs. It's just easier to do. It's faster. It's frankly, the permitting is easier. The whole thing is set up to do it. So there's this market that exists here, and if the market, where the margins are, is out there, and that's where everybody went. The sub-market, which is essentially what we're in, means that there aren't the tools and the resources and so forth to allow for sort of seamless communication. People are kind of in silos. They're raising money as nonprofits. They're, sort of not talking to each other quite enough about the work that they want to do. All of the things that happen in a normal market are kind of failing, or just aren't happening, let's say, or it's very hard. And so, but some of that, so there's that piece of it, and then there's real challenges in terms of, even just getting properties ready to be built on, getting permitting set, and those types of issues. So it's sort of slow work, but the macroeconomic view is just that this country and this area hasn't taken it seriously enough, and so we don't have either the tax incentives or grants or mandates that would be necessary to create massive housing.
When you say this area hasn't taken it seriously enough, there's a lot of ways that you could kind of reflect on that or take that comment. Say a little bit more. So, like, is it the capital providers haven't looked at this seriously enough? Is it the government hasn't changed enough and hasn't supported this? You mentioned incentives. Is it is it a collective?
It's a collective. It's
I'm not trying to point fingers.
No, it's such a massive failure on such a high level. I mean, the number of cost-burdened homeowners and renters in our city is off the charts. This isn't like, 2% of people are, struggling here. This is like most of the people in our metropolitan area are struggling to make rent every month, or struggling to make the mortgage payment every month, or are stuck not being able to buy the starter home for a decade longer than they normally would. This is a societal massive problem. That said, we have enormous amounts of capital here. This is about the will of people to do something.
Right.
So if, like me, you believe that housing is a right, that everyone deserves housing, then this is really a choice that we've been making for a really long time. And we let it go so long that when economic conditions were what they've been over the last couple of years, it was sort of already poised to become a disaster.
Yeah.
And so we very clearly let this happen. And now we also very clearly can fix it. But we're going to have to be really serious about it. Now it's going to take some serious dollars and some serious will on behalf of people throughout the ecosystem.
Yeah, I was talking to someone about vacant lots, not just in Kansas City, Missouri, but in Kansas City, Kansas, which I think the problem is vacant lots is even worse when you look at the parcel map over there. And they were talking about these aren't just pieces of land that can be built on. There were decisions made when they were vacated where they just plowed things down.
That's right.
And you've got like remediation challenge. Like you can't build on that parcel.
Yeah, I just came here from a housing sort of opening in Ivanhoe. Fantastic house built by Kala, a wonderful developer. But that lot, like all these lots, had a house dropped into the basement. And when you do that, lead and all these other things get into the ground. And so you get a lot, let's say from the land bank, or you acquire it from somebody, and you have a negative $20,000 thing that you're sitting on.
Instantly.
Just to get back to zero, you have to go through this very time-consuming, very costly process just to get started. But that wasn't because of the neighborhood. They didn't want that. It wasn't because of, that was the choice of how we dealt with blight in that time after a very serious time of disinvestment, racially motivated disinvestment.
Yeah.
And so but the consequences, we have all of these properties that if they were even just at zero, you'd have much more of a market for these things. So anyways, you've obviously hit on the passionate button for me here, but there is absolutely no reason we shouldn't be able to clean up those cities, put houses on them. This is about people being willing to put a shoulder into it.
You and I are back in the same orbit again, in a way, in this social venture realm. This opportunity to be around social entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs that are really kind of driven by social impact. What role do you think entrepreneurs have in this story?
I'm an entrepreneur. I love entrepreneurs. I'm so thankful for this space and this chance to meet entrepreneurs of sort of all types, which is great. Entrepreneurs have this wonderful ability to just get stuff done and find ways to make it happen when it gets hard. I think in particular right now, I've been inviting a number of entrepreneurs into these conversations. We're finding new ways of doing things, which is really exciting. So whether that's automation or scale or ways that I'd say we kind of naturally look at a problem. This is a good, hard problem to spend some focused time on with entrepreneurs.
For sure.
To try to just come at it a little differently. I deeply love the nonprofits that we work with and that have been doing such wonderful work in this area for so long, but they're by nature looking at it from a typically very constrained place, right? It's budget constrained, it's relationship constrained. Typically, they're looking for permission to do things, those kinds of things. And I'd say that with love, having spent a lot of time and having lots of friends who are running or in these organizations. Entrepreneurs just look at stuff differently. And frankly, some of the most successful nonprofits are frankly run by entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
That I'm seeing, right? They're social entrepreneurs, and they're tearing it up right now.
It's funny that you use the word permission, because having come from a corporate background, having been an entrepreneur and now leading a nonprofit, I get what you said, because you feel like you're walking on eggshells constantly leading a nonprofit. Like there's so much risk in just running an organization.
Yeah.
Forget the mission and the hard work you're trying to do. You just have this feeling of, I can't screw this up.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and you got the board that you're responsible to, and you got your funders, and you got all of these other, it's layers and layers of permission. It's hard to get something done. If the way that we're looking at it is, if we can be responsible to the neighborhoods, to the families, and ultimately also to the missions of these great organizations that we're working with, then that's the permission that we need. But within that, anything's possible, right? Now everything's on the table. Now all options, because we got a really big hard problem to solve.
Yeah. What are the other hard problems that you see out there that you, as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to be a futurist, right? You kind of have to sit there and think about, what do I want to dive into next? I know you got a lot of projects going on already.
I got a lot of good stuff going on.
I know you got a lot of good stuff, but I know you also probably have an eye on, like, what are the next big problems?
You're going to get me in trouble.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I'm very interested in utility scale battery storage, energy storage. I look at the explosion in energy usage driven by AI, frankly, and we've got our grids especially some of our grids are fairly unstable.
Yeah.
Can we solve a couple of these problems at the same time? And I think we can.
It's interesting to me. We listen to people talk about city infrastructure. We still have wood pipes, rolling around that being replaced, and we're trying to figure out how to replace massive amounts of infrastructure. I think people forget our power grid is a legacy infrastructure.
Yeah. No, I think there's massive opportunity. This is these are $1 trillion kind of things. So that's a really interesting one. I don't know. I tend to focus on the internet as kind of technology of choice, and I've been so heartened by how many, especially the next generation of folks. We're getting a little gray. The next generation of folks are, they're looking at problems, and they're social venturers first, right? They're looking at the number of folks that I'll just say that I came up with who were entrepreneurs. 9 out of 10 were looking to make money.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I was at 99 out of 100.
Maybe 99 out of 100.
Yep, no, absolutely.
But in talking to my kids' friends that are coming up through the high school, and the young folks that we've hired into these companies, and they're about change, and they're about change at scale, real change, and not for a buck, because it's the thing they're passionate about and the right thing to do. That's just, I don't know, that being able to work on something that makes real change at scale with a group of people who are focused on doing that, to me, that's the magic. That's just nothing better.
Here's my take on that, is I think we've reached this point where there are a lot of ways to make money.
Yeah.
And with technology being what it is, with artificial intelligence, the democratization that we were talking about a minute ago, there are a lot of ways that you can make a living. Yeah. You just have to kind of engage in some of these things. Solving the big problems, transformative change to society, I think that's where I see that too. And it is running the social venture studio and the social venture meetup. You get to be around a lot of those people, and that's what they're driven by now. And it's just, I agree. It's different than it was even 15, 20 years ago.
Yep.
It gives me hope. I was a judge at one of these youth. I'm trying to think of the Casey Invention Convention.
Yeah.
And every year you see these kids and these discoveries and these inventions and these things that they're doing, and I just walk out of there thinking, we'll be okay.
I feel the same way.
They're going to save us. We're going to screw it up, but they're going to save us.
Yeah.
So, and I wonder if our parents they felt the same way.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure they did. My kids are sort of like, as long as you guys get out of the way fast enough, we'll take care of this.
See, you're taking away my vision of the golden age of the senior entrepreneur. That's what I'm hopeful for.
Actually, I'm hopeful for that too. Yeah. I can't imagine retiring or doing, frankly, anything but this. So I'm hopeful for that too.
You think you'll ever retire, Dan? I mean, or do you think you'll just keep?
I hope not. I get the pleasure of hanging out with a lot of entrepreneurs that are a generation, older than me. The Tom McDonalds and Bob Berniers and those, that group, and they're still doing it, right? Yeah. They're still causing real change. They're still funding entrepreneurs to do cool stuff, and it's a good, for me. I take that as a really good model that I'd love to be able to emulate.
Where do you hope to be in 5 years?
If I'm still working,
And Bali is not an acceptable answer.
I've been to Bali. It's not that great.
All right.
I'd much rather be in. I hope to be in rooms of people that are working to change the world, all focused on that energy. I'm really very bullish, of course, on the things that I'm working on now. I'm hopeful that the efforts that we're putting out there now attract lots of talent, so that they're building things off of those platforms that I can't even imagine. That would be great.
What are you most excited about that's happening in Kansas City?
There's so much good stuff that's happening in Kansas City. I just the vibe here is it's so good. I of course I wish we were taking more risks. I wish the investor group.
That was going to be my next question. What do you wish would change?
Well, we'll start with that one. We need to take bigger risks. We need to be a little more fearless. The new company that I'm running with Aaron, we will not raise $1 here. We won't even try to raise money here. Because it's an unfundable business here. That's not good.
What do you think? What is it about? And is that a Midwestern thing, or I find that to be uniquely Kansas City in many ways?
I think we're more risk averse than most places. Places like Austin are showing us that you can do it at scale in other places, and even other smaller cities than us are taking bigger risks. Look at Omaha and the things that they're doing. But I think we have this. We're very nice. The community is really strong. We are supportive, so we'll donate. The Kansas City Community Foundation is one of the largest community foundations in the country. So we're good. We're sort of good at doing those things, but we're seriously risk averse. We tend to have older school industries that have been a little bit more stayed, and I think that's. We've just got this culture where you can invest here, and there are lots of good companies that are, you don't have to be a unicorn to have a great, great business. Right. And so we're seeing a bunch of those businesses get funded, really good businesses. But of course, I'd like for people to take bigger risks. But our ability, the thing that I love, seeing my different communities show up for each other. It's harder to find. I haven't found. I've been a lot of places. I haven't found another place that's quite like this for how we do that.
What do you think What do you think needs to happen to change that risk-averse culture? Is it some wins?
Yeah, that's what most people say, and I probably agree with that. I think we probably need, the Payets and some of the other ones that are coming up now. It's that is what's happening from the last, right? It's Tom and Cliff and the other group who are making the biggest. They'll take risks, and it's going to be, I think, this next batch of entrepreneurs who that's how they did it. So they're going to be more willing to take risks. That's the Silicon Valley formula, and we've seen that in some other places. I'm hopeful that when people have these exits, that they're going to put the money right back here.
Of all the three things that you've got, where you're hanging your hat right now, between Ad Predictive, between the work that you're doing from a charitable nonprofit, community-centric piece, and then the projects that you're working on with the AND Company, and what are you most excited about?
Oh, I'm in trouble that way. I'm excited about all of it.
All right, that's fair.
I genuinely am,
yeah.
And I'm not taking any other projects. I'm not sitting on other boards, and I'm not investing in other things, right? So that's a sign that I'm extremely excited about these things that I'm a part of. Even Ad Predictive, which has been around for a very long time, our ability now to create, we've got this great new product, and we've got a team of people who are really excited about it, and putting this cutting edge technology to work, and it's just a great time in all three spaces. It's just a great time. Dan,
thanks for coming and talking.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it, and again, and I get the fortune of sitting up here with a lot of really cool people, but thanks for what you're doing for the city. Thanks for what you're doing for our community. Thanks for choosing to come home. and do it here.
I mean, right back at you. This is this amazing spot. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. You
Yeah.
can come back and share updates.
Anytime.
All right.